You're listening to Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Join us as we explore how medical professionals can achieve stellar success in all areas of life. It's time to level up.
Hi, everyone. We're back at Stellar Success Podcast. Your host, Dr. Tudor Francu. I have a great guest today in the realm of dentistry. Hardik Chodavadia.
Yep, that was amazing. But
How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm great. Thanks for coming over.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me on. I always have a lot of fun doing these kind of things.
Yeah. Hardik, can you just go over a little bit of your journey? Where did you start? Where are you now? What was your experience so far professionally?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a general dentist. I went to dental school in San Antonio. I grew up in Texas mostly. And I graduated dental school in 2014. And I went to work for at the time, they were a growing group. They only had 30 offices at the time when I started with them. By the time 12 months later, they had 50, and now they're actually one of the biggest groups in the entire country, I'm pretty sure. But so I worked for a pretty large dental group. And then, me and a friend of mine from dental school who also worked for that same group thought we were, our opinion was like, well, these guys have a lot of problems and they're still killing it, so this can't be that hard. So we ended up deciding to open our own practice. And the funny story is we actually originally tried to acquire a practice because that's what everybody told us to do, right? Like, don't start something brand new because it's hard to get patients and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, that makes sense. And we actually got as far as signed the LOI. I met this doctor who was selling his practice, really amazing practice in South Austin. And the bank decided, they're like, hey, there's two of you guys. It's not busy enough for both of you, so we're not going to finance your practice, right? Which was interesting because, it was a practice with the doc who had been slowing down for a couple years and still was killing it. So we were like, there's a lot of opportunity in this office that can do really, really well. So we had to pivot, and, ironically, they gave us a blank check to do a startup with no patients. So, which I thought was always very interesting. But we opened our first practice in 2016, again, general dentistry. And we, through hard work, a lot of luck and timing, we ended up growing that practice to become beyond like what we thought was possible. And we've been steadily growing our dental group since then. So we have 8 locations right now, soon to be 10 this year, mostly in the Austin area. We have one outside of Dallas. And yeah, professionally, that's been the thing.
That's very interesting. It's interesting what you said, that the bank didn't give you a loan because they thought the practice was not big enough for the two of you, but they gave you a loan to start a new practice.
From scratch, 0 patients.
From scratch. Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
I'll provide a little color there.
Yeah.
The practice we were buying was pretty busy, right? So we were going to have over $1 million in the practice loan, and he was selling the real estate too. So it was like a much bigger loan we were taking. It was probably close to $2 to $3 million, right? And we were a brand new dentist with like negative net worth. So I can understand that, but they also gave us a blank check to build a brand new practice with 0 income. So
yeah. So Hardik, given what you did so far, what is your definition of success?
That's changed over the years, I'll tell you, because like from the beginning, when we were in school, my wildest dream was to have a practice that did $1 million, right? That's what we were taught success was, and we got that within 2 years, right? And I was 27, 28 at the time, so I'm like, oh, what do I do next? And so for a long time, I think, especially being a little bit younger and more naive, I thought of success as like, I saw these guys, like the group that I work for. I was like, man, these guys, like, they grew to like 30 practices, 50 practices. Like, that's what I thought I kind of almost defined success as like, just like creating this massive thing and continuously growing. And obviously that is a type of success. Over the years, kind of what I've realized is success is more, I think, more internal than all these little external things, right? How at peace are you? How am I, especially now that I have a family? I have two little girls. I've been married, since I graduated dental school, but am I able to spend the time with my family that I am with, and also obviously continue to grow and be proud of the work that I'm doing? And I think I look at success more from that standpoint, more than just like the number of offices I have. Obviously, monetarily, there's goals that you want to reach. And I think being in the industry and in the career that I am, I'm blessed with the opportunity that, I mean, I think I like to think I'm a good dentist. So like no matter what happens with the business stuff, I'm still gonna have a pretty good job, like no matter what, right? And so I think I look at outside of some of those like previous goals I had, and I think a lot of it is just really building, for me now, building a type of organization that I can be proud of and building like a machine, right? And I think that that's kind of what I look at, and giving me the flexibility to spend time with the people that I love and like have that type of freedom is what I tell you success is.
Yeah, that's great. So let's go back a little bit, because you finished dental school, you work for a bigger company,
Mm-hmm.
and then you decided to get your own company.
Yes.
What are the mindset changes that need to happen in a head of a recently graduated dental school doctor to be able to think he can do this?
I think a lot of irrational confidence. And I think it was really, we were just motivated by the fact that we saw, so, we worked with a lot of really amazing people at this group, right? Some amazing dentists, amazing dental assistants, our administrative team, our front desk were awesome. And I think just seeing how good the team was, but we weren't necessarily put in a position to do well. And I'm like, man, there's so much opportunity here. I think I can try to do it. A lot of it was being okay with taking the risk of doing it. Because honestly, the way I thought about it was, I'm 26, 27 years old. Yes, I'm married. My wife has a good job, so I'm lucky there, right? And I don't have any kids. I don't have any major time restrictions on myself at that moment, right? In that moment. So I'm like, hey, if I'm going to try something crazy, I need to try this as soon as possible, right? Because I don't think I would have made the same leap given the situation that I'm in now with like a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and really wanting to make sure that I have time dedicated to them and I'm present, so I think it was a lot of me thinking, why not do it now, right? Because from a personal standpoint, it makes the most sense. I can sit here and grind for 12 hours a day, right? It was what I was doing in school anyways, right? And so like I could sit here and work as much as I need to, read it and try to learn as much as I need to right now without it really affecting too many people outside of myself.
Yeah, this is very interesting, Hardik, and I want to stop here and kind of ponder upon this thing. The
Yeah.
fact that a successful entrepreneur like you thinks about stuff that, in terms of why not and not why. The why not question for an entrepreneur is essential, because you realize that you do not have anything to lose by doing something in business, and also you can put out yourself, your ideas, your skills, your determination, your motivation, and if it works, fine. If it doesn't work, you don't really lose anything. So the why not question is a very important thing from this point of view. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think that was the one thing that I think always kept us going. And I encouraged a lot of our friends that saw us do it. I had a friend that opened a practice at the same time, and he actually recently sold his practice. And he was telling me, and I didn't even remember saying this to him, but he was telling me when they were thinking about opening the practice, they came and visited us. And I was like, hey, look, just go for it. Right. I mean, and I had lots of patients talk to us about it as we were kind of growing the practices, and like we had opened another location, and they were excited to see us grow. I'm like, man, that's really amazing. How do you do it? And again, it was that why right now is the time to try it. And I told them my downside isn't that bad, right? Again, like I said, I like to think I'm a pretty good dentist, and I can perform pretty well in a lot of different situations from a professional standpoint. So worst case scenario, everything falls apart. I go bankrupt. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff to deal with that, and probably a lot of like talking to getting some therapy afterwards and psychological damage aside. You know what? Like, I still have my degree, I have my hands, and I can, still get a good job and support my family. Worst case scenario. So, I mean,
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely, absolutely. And the fact that, the question to the answer to the question is the question, why not? Um, it's the amount of risk you are willing to take.
mhm,
And I think the more successful you are, the more you have the ability to deal with the risk that you're taking. Because at some point, like you said, the worst case scenario is not that bad.
exactly.
Um, and people can learn from this. People can go back and say, why did not do this, at that time? What hold me back? What was the thing that I am not comfortable with? And I want to get into your mindset a little bit. The fact that you kind of got out of your comfort zone there, working for a nice company and having a great job and ready to start a family. and you put your pen down and you're like, I'm going to go for it now. Um, I'm sure you dealt with some things that didn't really go well.
The more than too many to count.
Well, that's what I want to focus on because I think we learn more from failures and setbacks.
Absolutely.
What can you give us as an example for that?
I mean, I can just start. I'll start. So some fundamental mistakes that we made from the beginning, right? Especially when building a business, I think you're there all the time. You have when it's you and just a couple of people, you have such full control over every second of what's happening there. And when you don't have any other restraints on your time, you can just that's all you can do, right? And I think the big mistake that we made from the beginning, I think one was not really documenting the process of what we were doing, how we did it, and really creating good systems that we felt like were replicatable, right? A lot of it was us willing it to be great and just being so in tune with every single conversation that was happening and not necessarily relying on our team or giving them to the tools that they needed to really push the office to the next level, right? And I think we took a very, and we're still dealing with those repercussions, right? And I think if we had started a bit more from the mindset about creating systems that could be repeated rather than just like fixing problems and putting out fires and just like hopping from one thing to another and really made a concerted effort to do that, I think we would have seen our scalability be a little bit more predictable. And honestly, like our lives being a lot less stressful. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things. Because it's really a lot harder to do it if you're far in and you have a big organization to go backwards and do that, right? So if you can start from that standpoint and really work on that when you have all the time in the world, because I mean, I had days where I had like 2 to 3 patients. I could have sat there and like let me go step by step and see like what I want this from the moment the patient walks in to the moment the assistant takes them back. Choreograph that, really make plan it, right? And then you have things to coach on instead of like it's really hard for I think as an entrepreneur, and especially when it's your own business, you like think about so many things at the same time about that customer experience. But it's really hard for someone coming in, especially if they're new or they're not familiar, to have the same care or even the same thoughts, right? You have to create that environment for them to do what you need to. And I think we didn't necessarily do that from the beginning. I think that's one of the biggest lessons we've learned is have we systemized our practices to the degree that we needed to. And I think like if I was to start over, that would be my biggest focus from day one is to how can I systemize and make this replicatable. Especially, I think, I mean, this is taking a little bit of a side turn, but looking at stuff that's happening in the AI world and creating automation and that kind of thing. If we had better processes, you can automate things a lot more easily and actually like especially we work with insurance, right? So there's so much on the back end that if you have good processes, there's tools out there that you can use to automate so many things that you can focus on the people, right? And I think that is the biggest thing is if we create an environment where everyone is focused on taking care of the people in the business, whether it be your team and the patients, then you're going to have success, right? But it requires you to have a system on to deal with everything else, right? That it doesn't create chaos.
Yeah, that's very interesting what you said, and it makes me think of a great book, James Clear, Atomic Habits,
Yep,
where he says, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall at the level of your systems. So if you
absolutely.
don't have that in place, like you said, the network and the procedures and the system in your business, you're done.
Yep.
You're done because at any point things can fall apart. And especially people, with working with people, and if they don't know what to do next, that's a big problem. Um, Hardik, what do you do every day to, in terms of habits, your routines, your daily approach to your life, to be able to
Yeah.
do this in a successful way?
I think this is this is something that took me a long time to figure out because um, when you're young, you can kind of push through a lot of things, right? As you get older, like your body is not as spry as it used to be, and you got to be a little bit more conscious about things. And I think the big focus, I would tell you, overall, but I think really honing in over the last like let's say 6 to 8 months is really having some set standards for myself on a daily basis that I hold to, right? Because I think success happens through repeated practice of good habits, right? Like it doesn't just happen by accident. And I think the biggest thing that I do, I wake up pretty early. I don't think you necessarily have to wake up at 4 a.m. I wake up at 4 a.m. every day. I don't think you have to do that, but realizing for me, my energy level, I am the most productive when it comes to thinking and doing bigger projects and solving bigger problems earlier in the day than I am later in the day. Some people are night owls. I cannot do it anymore, right? But realizing I need to make sure I'm going to sleep at a good hour, that I'm getting a good night's sleep, but also I wake up early, I work out, I try to get it to 7 days a week. And that is a huge thing. I think I have seen, like, as like, and I hate working out. I do not like I have not been in shape like my entire life, right? This is at, I'm 37 now. This is probably the best shape I've ever been in so far. And I think I have a long ways to go. But I noticed that even though it's not something I necessarily always enjoyed, some people love exercising and they love doing that stuff. But the better I was about like my physicality and taking care of that, like, it built a lot of confidence, right? And especially in an entrepreneurial role, and when people look at you as a leader, if you don't have confidence, you're also done, right? It built a lot of, I think it gave me so much more energy when if I work out. Like, I have so much mental clarity, and I think for me, it starts my day on such a good foot. That's like step number one, is doing that. Really investing in myself. Again, as a leader, as a father, all those things, really investing time into improving who I am as a person and how I show up for the people around me, because we have about 75 employees, right? And I think there was a time where I just sat down and I realized, I was like, there's 75 people that work for us that are relying on me to be like the best version of myself, and their families, their livelihood are all relying on me doing that. So I got to be able to show up every single day. And that's just for them, not including my own family, right? And so realizing that if I don't spend time on myself, whether it be reading books like James Clear, Dan Martell is one of my favorite guys out there on entrepreneurship and leadership, and spending time on self-improvement, I think that's huge. Spending time reading about mindset, some spirituality, and really like being able to do that, because there's a lot of stresses that come throughout the day, right? There's like a million problems thrown at you, and you have to just be able to be centered and be able to handle those things. And so just consistent daily practices on reading, meditation, exercise, trying to eat healthy, right? And being really mindful about that is huge. The biggest thing I had to work on as a person was being present, right? Especially with growing up in the age that we are. I have devices that can keep me distracted 99.9% of the time. I probably get like 15 messages like every hour, right? At least. And so really realizing that when you're talking to somebody, so I do this with patients all the time, right? It's like, when I'm with you, I need to be with you, right? And realizing and applying that concept to professional life, but most importantly, I think personal life, right? Like, when I'm at home, I'm at home. I'm like, I had a really, really great friend of mine that was talking about his kids, and he's like, dude, they don't want anything, right? I mean, mine are 4 and 6, so they like their needs are small, but really what they want is you, right? You can give them as much as stuff as you want, but like, they just want to be there with you, and like really realizing that, and ultimately you can apply that to every relationship in your life, right? And if you can be present for people around you, I think that's practicing that mindfully is I think has made the biggest difference. But I know there's a long-winded answer, but those are the kind of things that I try to.
No, I think you encapsulated several very important things. And what I'm thinking about right now is the fact that you said that you need to take care of yourself first. It's like the oxygen mask on a plane. You put it on you first before you help your kid.
Exactly.
And this is very important, because the way you present yourself to others, and it's a form of self-respect, ultimately. And, not only self-respect, but also the respect for others. The way you show up to them, the way you make them respect you, is the way you behave yourself, and you train yourself to be better. And the fact that you said that makes me think of, the other thing that Dan Martell said, was that, you have to make yourself better before anyone else.
Yep.
And that's going to make everybody else become better.
Are you a busy medical professional striving to excel in life and work? Stellar Success Podcast brings you the habits and insights of top leaders in medicine and beyond. Discover strategies for balance, growth, and fulfillment in every episode. Follow us on Instagram at Stellar Success Podcast for daily inspiration. Start your journey to success today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel now.
I think that's powerful.
Absolutely. Like you set the example, right? Like if you set the example as like this beacon, right, it's going to be really hard for people around you not to step up around you, right?
Right.
And you can only change yourself, right? You
Yeah.
like ultimately it is up to the people around that you're you to change yourself, change them. But like all I can do is change myself, better myself, improve myself so the people around me can see that example, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So let's talk a little bit about your business approach here.
Mm-hmm.
With what you know right now, and your experiences and your setbacks and your failures and your fumbling and dumpling during your journey, you learn a lot of lessons. If you would look back to your own self when you started this,
Mm-hmm.
what would be the most important advice would you give to yourself?
I would say there's probably a couple things, but looking back on like the biggest failures that we've had, I think it's delegation, like understanding what delegation is, right? It's trust but verify, and don't just trust because you don't want to deal with it, right? We've had we had a situation where we had a really key team member of ours about it's like maybe the hardest 6 months of my professional life, right? We had a key team member, someone who has been a part of the organization for 4 or 5 years, and we trusted and really ran a lot of stuff for us. We found out had stolen a lot of money, right? And obviously you're just like one, there's a level of betrayal that you feel, right? But then there's a level of responsibility that you feel because it happened under your watch, right? And it was really just because you created a situation where it was possible for someone to do that, and like you trusted them, but you didn't have the systems in place to check and balance certain stuff like that, right? And I think that that was be the biggest thing is like when you delegate, make sure you give the people the tools that they need to do the job well, right? It's telling someone, hey, this is now your job, figure it out. This doesn't not helpful for anybody, right? But also when you're dealing with things, critical situations, you got to keep an eye on everything, right? I think there's a right and wrong way to do it. People talk about like dashboards and certain things that you need to watch, and is really keeping a close eye on those things, right? I would say the other lesson is adding things doesn't necessarily equal adding anything, right? As a dentist, we look at adding new procedures, right? And like, oh, okay, I'm going to start doing Botox, or I'm going to start doing this procedure because that's sexy, right? Like it's cool to add new things to your belt, but am I doing the basics at the highest possible level, right? Because that's really what ultimately has been paying the bills. And I think really appraising new projects and new additions and changes to really equate it to like, what is my ROI here, right? Number one. Just because it makes more money doesn't mean I make more money, right? You can create a lot of revenue and not create a lot of profit pretty easily. But also, am I creating chaos for my team when we're still trying to figure out some of the basic stuff first, right? And it's you're trying to fly before you can run. And I think that was something we did a lot, right? Because we're I like to, me and my partner, we call ourselves like hype boys, right? So we get really excited and about all this new stuff, and if you take the time to really look at it and it's like, well, is this worth the amount of time and brain damage and all that stuff to do it? Then you may have made a different decision, right?
Yeah, yeah. Hardik, what's your philosophy in terms of investments? You're a young doctor.
Mm-hmm.
There are plenty out there that get through medical school, get to their own medical practice. They get to an age where they should retire and they're not able to.
Yep.
Or they're burnout and they're done.
Yeah.
But they cannot retire because they don't have the financial means to do that. What do you think it's the right approach, or in your personal case, what do you prefer to do in terms of investment strategies and secure your financial future?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, I made the mistakes that you shouldn't have made, right? I think really looking at your lifestyle and really trying to figure out what's important, right? I think that's step number one. I mean, this is probably a trap that so many docs fall into, right? Because you go through school, it's crazy. Like, medical doctors, like residency, like this is really hard. So then you want to like, hey, I deserve this, like this stuff, right? And I think realizing that you don't really need most of this stuff. Number one, like I have this thing that me and my friend, he's a pediatric dentist with a few offices. We're like, what if I just bought nothing for myself? Like, how do I feel? And my life did not change at all, by the way. I'm like, oh, I really don't need much, right? And so really being mindful of your lifestyle and don't let it I would say like don't let your lifestyle rise to where you want to go next. I think that's what a lot of doctors do, a lot of dentists I know do. I've fallen into that trap, and really be careful on that piece, right? Because I think if you're a little bit more mindful about that, especially when you're younger, then you can put that money to use rather than like me buying this fancy new car, right? I didn't need the Tesla, right? Especially right out of school, right? I did not buy one right out of school, but with that, I think as a doctor, as a dentist, you want to invest in things to me that I don't really have to. At first, I don't want to put a ton of work into it, right? I went the business side. That is where the majority of my investment was into the business, right? We don't have up until outside of the first practice, we didn't really have any debt, right? We put money back into the business to grow it, and that was one of the decisions that we made, was to put a lot of our own capital back in and to grow that as our like big investment. But I think it's you get a lot of opportunities thrown at you as a doctor, right? Because people know you have the ability to make a lot of income, and it's really figuring out what you can be at least passionate about if you want to be involved, right? I think there's like my partner has done a lot of like real estate syndicates and that kind of thing, where it's like he's putting money into projects that he just like, I put it there, it's there, I don't really need to worry about it. And then I have friends that have put money into like, a lot of investment properties themselves, right? And they have a partner or they like managing it themselves, right? So, but they created a passion for it. And I think the goal is to like, how do you create assets and wealth outside of just your like day-to-day job? And I think that's kind of how I would look at it. Now, I've been really lucky. And this is where, I don't know, in dentistry, I always, going through school, I was like, I saw these business guys that are like networking, and I was like, what the hell is networking? Like, what is the point of this? Like, I need to just go freaking study and get a job, right? But now realizing as you get out there, networking is so important, right? It's like so much as like your network is your net worth, right? That's like a common phrase, and like really meeting people, talking to people, and then you like the kind of opportunities that you can get from that are crazy, right? Like, I've been blessed. I had an opportunity to invest in a couple of pre-IPO companies, right? Like those things don't come across the table typically unless you know somebody, right? Or you had a conversation. And those investments to me are really like, they're very risky, don't get me wrong, right? But we were able to invest in Reddit, 2-3 years before it IPO'd, right? And I've known about Reddit since high school, right? So I've been like a big proponent to it, and just having that opportunity just because of people that I've talked to and they know I'm passionate about it. Yes, I'm a dentist. Yes, I'm an entrepreneur with a dental practice, but at my core, at my heart, I'm a tech guy. I did computer science my entire life throughout high school. I did computer science at college. I did bioinformatics research, which is like coding. So it was like my second career. If dentistry hadn't worked out, like if I hadn't gotten in, I applied twice. I didn't get in the first time. If I hadn't gotten in the second time, that's what I was going to do, right? And so now having the opportunity to be able to invest in stuff like that, just because of the conversations that I have with people, I think that's really important. And I think maybe a lot of doctors don't realize that you got to network a little bit, and how, there's opportunities out there. You just have to find them.
Yeah, that's important. The importance of the passive income streams have become more evident when you go up in age and your medical practice is winding down, and you realize that you're not going to be able to work 40 hours a week anymore. And there's no income coming in from that, and you have to rely on some other streams of income that can come from investments like that. And I agree. I think the network you have is going to make or break your future in all fields. I think it's a universal law. We can't do things by ourselves. There are very few things we can do by ourselves only. Yep. If you don't have a team, if you don't have people around you, if you don't have a network, like you said, you have no net worth. Hardik, what's coming up for you this year? What's exciting? What are your goals? What do you want to do?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, like, one of my personal goals is to, one, we have 2 new practices coming up in the business, right? And so really dialing those in, helping grow those, and really double down on the growth of our practices. 2024 was a relatively pretty challenging year for us. The back half of 23 was pretty challenging from a growth standpoint. For the first 8 years of our business, we were crushing 20, 30, 50% growth, and we were flat in 24, right? So there was a lot of challenges there. But my personal goal is I want to make $100,000 in a month, right, of just net income from our practices. Now, that isn't insanely, like, it would take us by growing by like 80% to get there. But you know, that's one of my big goals for the year. And you know, I kind of gave you a number where when we were in dental school, right, they teach us having a practice that does $1 million is like you made it right now. And now I know you can do numbers way beyond that. We have one practice in the Dallas Fort Worth area in McKinney. That's my brother's practice, and my personal goal is it's struggling, right? It hasn't not picked up. It hasn't caught like we expected. The rest of most of our other practices did, and it's to get that office to about $100,000 a month. So financially for the business, I think that's my goal. I have my other bigger, I think, like conceptual goal for me, and that I have a lot of passion around is we have a dental group, right? So I want to create one of the first autonomous backends of a dental group. So that was something I thought about like late last year around like October, November. So really spending some time automating a lot of the boring stuff that, like I mentioned, like insurance and claims, and like we spend more time, effort, and money on that than we do on sometimes taking care of patients, right? So that's one of my goals too, is to build one of the first, you know, dental groups that is autonomous on the things that don't matter. Because you know, what matters is taking care of the patients. What matters is the relationships that you're building every day with your team and with the people coming into the door and really making them feel like they're important. And what to me doesn't matter is making the insurance companies happy. So if I can spend less time and effort and people focusing on that and more people focusing on the people, then, you know, I'll hit my goals.
That's awesome. That's a great goal. I wish you good luck, and I hope people can know more about your approach to grow a dental practice. How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. That's the best place. You go to my Instagram is at Dr. Harcho, DrHarcho. If you want to check out our practices, they're called Enamel Dentistry. So www.enameldentistry.com. Also at Enamel Dentistry on Instagram. So, you know, if anyone has any questions, needs, you know, guidance on building their practice, wants someone to help them walk them through the process, wants any sort of coaching or anything like that on that stuff, please shoot me a DM. I'm an open book and I love to help. And if you guys can't tell, I love to talk too. So, yeah.
Hardik, thanks for coming over. I think your insights were very precious, and I think hopefully they'll help a lot of people do the same thing as you do.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Francu. I really, really appreciate you having me on.
You're welcome.
That's a wrap on Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Interested in joining us? Go to stellarsuccesspodcast.com/guest to apply. Stay stellar and level up.